Hello everyone. In this video we're going to talk about ions, what they are and what's in them. Okay, an ion, as you can see here, is an atom. Well, it used to be an atom. It's an atom that has lost or gained electrons that now has a total charge to it. Okay, so ions come in two forms. They come in positive forms and they come in negative forms. And if we're going to talk about positive ions, we're going to talk about something called cations. And cations are atoms that have lost electrons. Lost one or two, three, or more electrons. And if you lose something that's negative, you become positive. So let's take a look at the math behind forming a cation. If you take a look at sodium here, the sodium atom has 11 pluses and 11 minuses. The net charge is 0. Okay? If sodium loses an electron, therefore becoming a cation, it now still retains its 11 pluses, but now has 10 minuses. The total charge, when I add those together, is a +1 charge. There it's represented as a +1 or 1 plus. It doesn't matter how you represent that for me. So as far as ions go, or cations go, they must have lost negatives. And when you lose negatives and you still have positives left over, you become overall positive. The opposite discussion of that is something called an anion. And an anion is a negative ion. It's an atom that has gained electrons. So with an anion, we must have done something, and the thing that we did is we gained electrons. So if you gain things that are negative, you become more negative. Let's check out the math now. Notice the number of protons never changes, okay? We can't change the number of protons here in Stowe, Ohio, at least in this chemistry class. So notice I have 17 positives and 17 negatives. Okay, the net charge is 0. Therefore, it's an atom. This is an ion here. This is -1, so I still retain the 17 positives as I did over here, but I gained an electron, so I have 18 negatives. Okay, so when I add this together, it comes out to be -1 or 1 negative. That's the charge right there. Okay, so that's where electrons come from and how they move in and out, at least to create ions. That's not how they do it. It's the fact that they do it. And we end up with cations, which are positive ions, and anions, which are negative ions. So anything that we call a monatomic ion is just a single atomed ion. Mono means one, atomic means atom. Of course, I suppose I'm calling it monatomic ion. It should be monoionic, mono whatever. Anyway, single atoms, right? Single atoms. Doesn't matter if it's +1, +2, or +3. Doesn't matter. Those are monatomic. Polyatomic ions are now more than one kind of element. There's H and O. There's C and N. There's N and H. There's N and O. Here's one that's hidden right here. Here's H, C, and O. So those are all polyatomic ions. And again, it doesn't matter what charge they have, whether it's plus or minus, whether it's +2, -2, etc., etc. Okay? Here's a good look at where these things are. You'll notice a couple things, and we'll talk about this as the class goes on, but everything in this column are +1. Everything in group 2 are +2. These go all over the place, so I'm going to ignore those for now. Everything in column 13 has +3. I'm going to ignore that. Everything in 15 is -3. Everything in 16 is -2. And everything in 17 is -1. And there's reasons for that. Oh, by the way, 18 is 0. Okay, and there's good reasons for this, but I can't quite get into it just yet because we just haven't learned enough chemistry, but more on that later. I know I say that quite a bit. So if we're talking about ions, how many protons, neutrons, electrons are in this form of aluminum? And this aluminum is Al3+. So protons, it's aluminum, so it has to have 13 protons. Neutrons, 27 minus 13 is 14. Electrons, okay, be careful here. It's not 13, so the protons and electrons no longer match. This must have lost 3 electrons because it's 3+. So if you've lost 3 negatives, you become overall positive. As a matter of fact, you become +3 if you've lost 3 of them. So how many electrons does this have? That's 13 minus 3 is 10. 10 electrons. Let's try this guy right here, okay? How many protons, electrons in this version? Oh, by the way, that's not aluminum. That particular substance is selenium. Geez, oh Pete, that's a terrible mistake. Okay, so let me rewrite this. So selenium has a -2 charge, is 78 and 34, okay? So how many protons? It's got to be 34. That's the atomic number. How many neutrons? 78 minus 34. Looks like it's 44. And how many electrons? Well, here we've gained 2. You've gained 2 negatives, so you're overall negatively charged. So that's 34 plus 2 is 36 electrons. Okay? Now, it says, based on the previous slide, predict the charge and charge expected for the most stable ion of barium and the most stable ion for oxygen. Okay? I'm not going to get into that just yet because I think we need to do a little bit more, and that might end the notes for now. Yeah, I'm going to end the notes for now. So I'll get more into this later, but